Hi everybody, so welcome to episode 2 of What's Occurring with myself and Win. And I get the opportunity to turn the tables this week and be the one that's asking the questions and put my colleague under a little bit of pressure. Are you ready for this, Win?
I can sense the pressure. I think does it look like yeah. I'm well prepared as well.
Is that why you're looking so little in the screen? It's like little and Archie. I'm up here and
absolutely. Yes, I'm standing. I am sitting down, just for the record. I'm not standing up. just let's just get that out there, Jack. Yeah.
Okay. So.
I'm really glad we should have recorded the before and what we were chatting about earlier before we got onto this. Because that's quite humorous.
A very interesting conversation for everybody to have listened to before we started recording this. Okay, so we're going to be talking all things finance with you today, which I think is a very important topic and relative topic for all of us at the moment in this unprecedented time. So, in your opinion then, Wim, what does the future look like, do you think, for companies and employees at the moment with cost savings and obviously things like grants the governments are handing out at the moment?
Interesting question, and I think what we need to be mindful of is the transition of change. Lots of companies, lots of organizations, lots of people are moving from managing people face to face in offices, etc. Now they're going to be thinking about, well, if we could do the same job but from a remote perspective. And I think it changes the emphasis from needing those considerations about where we employ people, why we employ people, whether companies need premises or whether they don't, whether they can lease as and when they do. And I think it starts to spell that level of strategy. So when companies and people and organizations start, those self-employed like you and I, start to put things like the vision, mission, and the goals in place, and we look at what the vision continuum looks like in terms of the next 2 to 3 to 5 years, and some of the considerations we have in there are things like our innovation, whether it's progression. Look at Parliament as an example. Parliament all of a sudden has shifted from face-to-face bench requiring participant to Zoom. And I know Jacob Rees-Mogg today, he's put something out there that he wants everybody to come back to Parliament because it's the dynamic isn't the same. But does the dynamic have to stay? Do we always do what we've always done? Do we always get what we always got? And I think that might. Yeah, so the mindset is, we need to have a little bit of a transitionary change and create that future thinking about what can tomorrow bring. Being an Apple fan with an Apple Watch, you could literally, technically, if I double click on this, I can technically buy a house with it. So the innovation. So we talk about how we manage our costs. So we look at tomorrow, when we bring that forward to today, we think, right, what would we do tomorrow if we had the opportunity of change? And I think what I call it, and I mention this in all my courses and everybody. I mean, there's lots of my customers and clients, etc., that are sitting on and connected to me on LinkedIn, which I know you and I are big fan favourites of. I'm going to be aiming to put these things out there in terms of so everybody can see this, so they'll know what I'm talking about. But I use the words commercial empathy. We touched on empathy as a key driver of emotional intelligence from last week.
We did.
Yeah. So if I'm thinking about what does the future look like, well, we need to have that commercial empathy. We need to be mindful of how commercial we are, how we drive that commercial forward, what platforms we use in terms of, can we use virtual platforms? That's negating. That's going to save the business an absolute fortune. And then the operational expenditure then, so the things like OPEX, what we invest in the business, will that then change? Then that will manifest itself in terms of how we manage our costs going forward. So yeah, I think, what does the future look like? I think the future is quite exciting, if I'm honest. But we've been forced into this lockdown, social isolation and everything. We've got a choice about it, and if we've been forced into it, look how we've adapted.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure, you were very similar to me in this respect. I never, ever even thought for a moment about doing virtual training. You know, I love being out in the classroom environments and meeting people face to face. But now, having done some virtual sessions, I know you've been doing some as well. Do you agree? I'm actually enjoying it, and I know people who are attending the sessions, they're bringing that mindset that they're not quite sure whether it's going to work as well as the classroom environment. But all the sort of feedback at the moment, I know we've both been getting, has been really positive, that people are adapting.
Completely, and I think the same. Completely. And sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. There's a bit of a lag,
but that's fine.
You know what I'm like anyway. Wait for technology. Yeah.
Or carry you
in. But you are right, and I think the way we've transitioned to it, and I've had, I did a Chartered Management Institute diploma, one of the first ones actually that the client had swapped, the CMI had, the client had swapped, because it was an in-house program that I put together. But the client turned around and said, "Is there any way?" Obviously, we want to keep the programs going because it's linked to the apprenticeship levy, which are, you know, our saviours for our world, because it allows sort of training to be a focal part of the business, and the funding is already there. The government have created that legislation that any company with a salary above 3.5 million have to have a pot where that is put into the levy. So the client turned around and said to me, you know, we don't want to lose this because these guys are halfway through with the assignments to coming through. You know, I was marking some of the assignments, and we were quality checking them, and they were in a really good place, and the momentum was there. Now, with social isolation and some of the restrictions, etc., they wanted to know if we could swap it from a face-to-face. But I'm with you on that. You know, I love face-to-face, but I want to you know, we've been doing the platform stuff for a long time. The transition to what we can actually draw out of this and what the cost saving is for people. So are people more efficient with it? So they come onto the courses and the training things now, whether it's some of the stuff that you do on emotional intelligence for the 2 to 3 hour ones, some of my sprints that I'm doing, I'm like training sprints, etc. You know, the 3 hours is a good sort of warmer to people seeing the differences. They come on with skepticism, and they go off smiling in the face, and they haven't left home. Oh.
Absolutely.
Good quality coffee and tea.
And not everybody wants to be on camera. I'm convinced some are still in their PJs, but hey, who cares? But no, I absolutely agree with you in terms of cost savings going forward, you know, on a long-term basis for businesses. Logistically, it can be much easier to get people across sites, even across the world, in different bases, to actually all come together for a training course virtually. There's the cost savings of no travel expenses for, you know, staff to get to one venue, or we're paying any expenses for the trainer themselves. So I can certainly see a potential going forward of, you know, potential cost benefits, but even a high return on investment for companies, because people will, I think, retain information that's over a shorter period of time. It's a 2 hour session, a 3 hour session, they go away, they put things into place, they put those new skills into place, and then they may come back at a later point then to learn a little bit more. So doing it in those sort of bite-sized sessions, I think, can be certainly aim as a higher return on investment for businesses. But in terms of leadership, do you think there's important things that leaders can do to empower their teams to become more commercially aware?
Yeah, I think, you know, we talk about, as from a leadership and management, I mean, both of us are leadership management specialists, so we talk about these things, and we talk about it sometimes blasely. So we ask people, you know, we tell people what needs to change. You know, we need to be more communicative. So we need to up our game. We need to be listening more. To bring out Stephen Coveyism into the equation, and do we listen to respond or listen to hear? And sometimes we just think, well, yeah, I mean, as part of our engagement and our communication, our empowerment allows people to make decisions that they wouldn't have been able to make previously. We talk about levels of trust. If we want people to have that commercial empathy that I talk about, so we talk about the things, and maybe I'm going to throw a little bit of jargon and stuff out with this now. So we talk about some of the jargon. I mean, I talk in some of my courses around, the interdependency with companies to the economy. So we talk about from a macro to a microeconomic perspective, and how that level of interdependency controls the function. So every time you and I transact with Asda's, Tesco's and everything else, that has a knock-on effect with the food, with the supply chain. So companies out there can then decide to make a strategy. So they forecast. So we talk about what the forecast is, where we plan ahead. And we've been having forecasts for many years in terms of weather. So we can go 3 to 4 days in advance, and we can plan accordingly. So if it's dry tomorrow, I know now it rained last night, so I know the forecast for the next few days that it's dry tomorrow, so I can cut the lawns tomorrow. I'm not then stressing, thinking, oh my God, I better get it done. So there's no that panic. So when we start talking about things around about empowerment, is that you are giving people the opportunity to make a decision. So if the strategy is aligned, so the business focuses on the strategy. So we talk about the commercial drivers that the company's looking at. So every organization, you and I both do it, we talk about our forecast. So we plan our diary, our month. We talk about capacity. We talk about the ability to cope with that capacity. And I think COVID's shown that in terms of the supply chain, where all of these idiots have gone out and buying loo roll in a gazillion format. Well, all of a sudden, companies have got, like Tesco's, Asda's, Morrison's, Sainsbury's, and all these big companies, and even the smaller supply chains. So you can see the interdependence of it, is that they all start to focus and think, right, we need to order in this amount of loo roll, etc., or a product. So we bring a product in. But let's assume that, well, not let's assume, because it's a reality, where the barrel of oil fell from, and I think a litre of petrol or something like 99 pence.
Hey, isn't it just absolutely brilliant?
But the moment that happens, the irony, the moment that happens, that has an automatic knock-on effect to how much your cereal costs. So everything in your basket has a knock-on effect from GDP, and GDP is essentially what the turnover is of the economy over the period of 12 months. It's just measured in a quarterly period. So what your basket is automatically had a knock-on effect, and it's governing output called the Consumer Price Index. You've got CPI, you've got RPI. One has got housing costs in it included, i.e. the RPI, and the CPI has got it excluded. But everything has a knock-on effect. So if we can recognize these things from an external, as in I'm working for a company now, as a hypothetical. If I then want to start making some changes and making some suggestions, so bring this full circle in terms of your question is, well, yeah, give people that autonomy, that empowerment to think, well, I can still do my job, but I can save you money by me not being in the office. And I'm more productive. Now, whether that is balancing out over the 80-20 rule, I call it, where do I do 80% of my time of my work in 20% of the time, or do I do 20% of my work in 80% of the time, which means, and not that they both add up to 100, but because one is telling me that I'm more efficient and I'm working in my optimum. Like, I'm a morning person, so after 5, 6 o'clock, I can get a whole day's work done probably by about 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely does make sense, and it'd be interesting, I think, to see in the future, just how many businesses do keep that sort of change of having, some of their teams working from home, and of course working from home doesn't suit everybody, but there'll be a great percentage of people out there that are more productive. They don't have the same level of distractions in an office environment that's against working from home. So yeah, I mean, you and I are sort of used to working from home when we're not out training, or you're in your lovely office. I'm in my conservatory. Who's got a better view?
You've got a much better, you've got a comfy chair, and that's one thing. So just to quickly throw in this, so if organizations now start empowering their staff where money can be saved, costs. So we talk about the way classification of costs and budgets are controlled and managed. If an organization has got a vision that they want to increase the assets of the business, which would be an operational expenditure, so the OPEX, so they can then start to think about how we can save money to invest in the business. whether we rent or lease buildings, etc., whether we lease premises, or whether we just lease them when we need them. You know, I lease a car. It's part of the business, and it's a functionality of the business that allows me to travel. But colleagues that you and I both know that work and live in London, they lease a car when they need to get out of London, because everything in London, so it's all operational expenditure. But it's self-imposed empowerment. So that means that they make a decision, their commercial empathy. Why would they have a car and use a tube every day that's sitting outside the house? Just wouldn't make any sense. So they lease when they need it. So can companies function like that? But if companies knew and understood some of the costs behind how business decisions are made, that commercial empathy again, we filter from the top down, from the director, the CEO, the senior leaders, etc., everybody down, so everybody's accountable for the costs that they can manage and influence. But if we don't train the people at the lower grades, they think, because it's not their money, there's no realism behind it a little bit.
Absolutely. Know what you mean. I mean, that makes perfect sense. So if you were to write a leadership program, and if I was to attend one of your fantastic courses, which I know if my husband was here right now, anything to do with improving my knowledge of finance, he would absolutely say, Jackie, you need to go on Wynn's course because you need to stop spending so much money on shoes and handbags and other non-essential items. What could I or anyone else, in terms of a leadership role expect? Because I know, the fantastic feedback that you get from your certainly your finance for non-finance managers training courses. But what could people expect? What could I expect if my husband had his way and got me on one of your sessions?
If I was going to look and put in a program together and just give you the last program, one of a few that we've got running at the moment, I think it has to resonate with people. It has to be bespoke. It's going to be tailored. And I'm working with a potentially new client now. And Emma and I have had various conversations about where we see things moving forward, etc. And what suggestions have I got? Well, I want to know a little bit more about the dynamic of the business before you even think about it. But the one thing I always say to people is that you need to have Alan Sugar's famous quote is, if you want to manage an effective, profitable business, look at the costs, look at the things that are the operational expenditure, the OPEX. So some of the things that I go through in quite a lot of detail, and I always have an insistence that I put we either call it a budget management, finance, commercial finance course, it's called. So it can have we can have a ring to a lot of things. Finance for non-financial management is just something that I think is a tool that everybody in an organization should have. And I strive towards that commercial empathy. I think if people have commercial empathy, if people have an understanding, we try to teach our kids when they're growing up the value of money, etc. When they come into an organization, we pay them, but we don't teach them the value of money. And just the simplistic costs of using like your photocopying ink. People use photocopiers in offices just for their own personal use, which is fine. It's a little bit of a perk, maybe, I don't know.
but it's because they have no understanding of the costs behind,
and the implication of it.
So absolutely.
I remember a few years ago, just a quick anecdote. I remember many years ago, one of my old employer actually, every time you wanted to photocopy, if you went in one of the head offices, you had to have a key card, and that had to be swiped in there, and that went through to a cost code. So literally, there was a central fund. So that essentially, and what we talk about cost classification, some of the budget management side of it now. So knowing your business, understanding your costs, knowing what the commercial empathy behind it, that cost would sit under under budget as an indirect cost, because that would be distributed out. Now, me being me, I don't tend to have anything paper-based if I can help it, because I use an iPad with a pen. So I write everything on an iPad, and I do everything on email. So I very rarely use paper. In fact, I can't remember the last time I wrote anything on a piece of paper. But I don't photocopy because I PDF and email people. And I'm thinking, that's comfortable. when you attend one of my online courses, or one of my virtual courses, sorry, it's not an online per se, but I get a PDF over to people at the end of the course because I don't then have all the clutter of paper. And that cost sits there. But if you are managing your cost as a department and you're managing it very well, and your variance, you're under budget, so your management accounting and your finance and your chief executive and your chief finance officer can see this is getting fed back through, and you're thinking, well, actually, you're in control of your costs. Yet then you're responsible for another department using a huge amount of that photocopier, and they just print it for the sake of it, because some people do. So the knock-on effect. So if that person had a little bit more commercial empathy, I'm using that word again, that term again, and all that means is being commercial and having empathy, because you speak about that in emotional intelligence. It's a key driver. So that links to every single part of that leadership and management program, from leadership to leader to manager, to coaching skills, to EI, to all aspects of people management and business growth, etc. So big integral element
absolutely.
of it.
So the message I'm getting there for myself is I need to have more empathy to my husband.
I'm not allowed to say that on camera, Jack.
when I'm clicking online on that sort of buy now button, I just need to look at his facial expression and be a little bit more empathetic. So if anybody's interested then in attending one of your courses and getting a greater understanding of the commercial awareness, whether that's an individual, whether that's a company that wants to educate and make their whole teams aware, how can they find you? Where can they sort of sign up to any of your courses that you might be running at the moment?
Well, you and I are both active on LinkedIn. It's Wyn Williams, it's Jackie Turner, Turner Corner, WJHC Limited, etc. I'm easily accessible. Virtual platforms, you and I both use Teams, Zoom. We're using Zoom now for this. We don't know what tomorrow brings, I think, with current lockdowns. So, Eventbrite for the both of us, we're both active on Eventbrite, so all of our courses on there. The courses can be tailored to whatever you need. I mean, if it's I've developed these sprint trainings that I'm doing. So technically speaking, the finance for financial management, commercial awareness, or commercial finance, or budget management, or whatever you want to use, they are in 3 different guises. So I've got a 3-hour sprint. I've got a whole day, which I tend to use, and it's to the standard of the ILM and the CMI, being a fellow with both bodies. So I do, quite a lot of work with them guys. So, but the level 3, the 1 day, is to that standard in terms of academic level, and that's normally sort of either sort of at ground level, or maybe a first line management team leader. And then that can be replicated then, and it's a lot more in depth on the 2-day version.
Fantastic.
But they all formulate as part of a full leadership program, and we've got 5 running at the moment that are ongoing, and they're going to be looking to finish and come to a head at some point next year in various months. So but they're integral. They're absolutely integral. If you're managing a team, fine, you can manage a team, but you have to be able to manage the costs. And you have to have that commercial empathy to be able to engage with them. And that relationship, essential.
Yeah, so it's very much a sort of core, vital skill, isn't it, for any leader and any business. Yeah. I just wanted to say, I'm glad you described yourself as easily accessible rather than just ezy.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, completely.
That went in.
So I'm short and I'm easy. Oh, God. No comments, please. No comments. In fact, I'd welcome the comments on that.
It's been a pleasure, as always, speaking to you this week, Wyn. I know you'll get a chance to turn the tables on me next week. And obviously we'll give everybody more details over the coming days as to what next week's topic will be. Is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, just one thing before we go on. Thanks, Jack. Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week, because the role is going to be reversed. But we are looking. Obviously, you and I have been chatting about these.
Yes, we have. Yes.
Yeah, and we're going to be looking at inviting. Both of us have put something on LinkedIn this week. We're going to be looking at inviting guests, and both of us will be interviewing the guests on an element of specialism or passion or anything. Anything. So if anybody's watching this and they're interested in being interviewed, grilled in a nice way, we'll have a bit of fun with Jackie and myself. Please. Yeah, please can you drop either Jackie or myself an email or instant messenger, and yeah, we'll get you on board.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll really look forward to that. But I'm going to now, because I've been looking out to the blue sky this entire time, so I'm not going to go and enjoy the lovely weather. But yes, it's been a pleasure as always.
Great. See you next week. Thanks, Jack.
Certainly will. Bye.